Hello, my name is Elise Knopf. I'm currently working for Vocational Rehabilitation Services, or VRS, for the state of Minnesota. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a white, deaf woman wearing black clothes. My hair is dirty blonde, and I have gold glasses and silver earrings on. I'm thrilled to be here today. We have a wonderful panel of people for you again. I would like to remind you of why we're doing this project. This came out of a project sponsored by the Minnesota Commission of the Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing, the hashtag Can Do Anything campaign. It focuses on individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, and their journeys, their stories, their employment experiences, and the accommodations that they use to give students an idea of how they can plan for their futures. Today's panel consists of individuals who are deaf-blind. We're thrilled to have them join us today. You will be able to learn from the diversity of experiences among them. This collaboration between, again, the Minnesota Commission of the Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing and Vocational Rehabilitation Services also includes the State Services for the Blind. And they all are partners that provide resources. They all work together to ensure the community has the support it needs. And now on to the panel. The individuals who are joining us today, and I'm glad to welcome, are Mindy Joy Mayer, Molly Peterson, Hannah Harriman, and last but not least is Sammy Porter. We're so excited to have them here, and we are ready to go. This structure will be a little different than the earlier panels. We'll be interviewing them individually for accommodation purposes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to hear your stories. Would you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your upbringing and where you went to school?
My name is Mindy Joy. My pronouns are he, him, and they. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I was born deaf. As a side note, I was adopted. My parents discovered I was deaf when I was the age of 2. My mother dropped some pans and pots onto the floor, and the loud noise frightened my brother who was playing with me. I didn't react. So my parents took me to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with a profound hearing loss. Much later, my vision loss was detected when I was 6 or 7 years old, beginning at first with nighttime vision loss. I kept going the wrong direction because I couldn't see my family in the dark, and my mother would have to chase after me. One morning, they noticed that I was walking right toward a tree, which I thought was a person. In another example, my mother signed me up for a readathon program. I told her that reading exhausted me, but I didn't really know why. My mother suspected that something was off and took me to be tested. Our family doctor freaked out and said that they didn't know what was wrong with me. So my parents took me to the University of Chicago to see an eye specialist. That was when I found out I had Usher's syndrome. I was 7 or 8 at the time. Later on, I attended the Illinois School for the Deaf. I was 12 years old when I started school there. I remember asking other students or anybody on campus if they had Usher's syndrome like me, and I was told nobody did. It was just me. Well, that didn't seem right. Then one of the assistant teachers did a vision screening on all of us students. There was a really long line for students who needed glasses, but I wasn't in that line. When I asked why, they told me that I didn't need to have glasses on top of the eye disorder that I had. I felt really lonely. No one else was like me. I went to Gallaudet University for a learning vacation opportunity with Art Rohring. That program really made an impact on me. In the fall, I went back to school and I told that assistant teacher about my experiences. Together, we asked the superintendent at the school to do a screening on all of the students. Sure enough, 40 of them tested and the results were uncertain. Those 40 students were sent to Springfield, where it was discovered that 5 of them did in fact have Usher's syndrome. We started an Usher's syndrome support group. My mother was involved with it as well. The group is entitled to learn how to deal with Usher's syndrome. I'm still in contact with a few of them. Many of them have lost their remaining vision, whereas I, on the other hand, still have some functional vision. Everyone experiences a different journey of vision loss. Some are fast, losing it all. Others are slow, losing their vision over time.
Hello, I'm Molly Peterson. I identify as deafblind. I grew up in the Twin Cities and currently live in Minneapolis. My pronouns are she, her. I was raised by a family that could hear, and they didn't know sign language. They didn't know anything about deaf or deafblindness. I was put into a deaf, self-contained classroom in school, and as my parents didn't know how to sign, that's where I learned how to sign, was in school. At some point, my parents divorced, and I went to the Minnesota State Academies for the Deaf in Faribault. I was there for a few years, went to the Florida School for the Deaf for a few years, and then came back to Minnesota where I graduated. I didn't originally identify as deafblind, but I started learning about deafblindness in high school and was part of a support group there, and that's where I started to identify as deafblind.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. My name is Hannah. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am deafblind, but I primarily identify myself as blind and hard of hearing. I'm totally blind with unilateral hearing loss in my left ear. I grew up the only deafblind or blind hard of hearing person in my family. I have 2 parents, 2 younger sisters. All of them are fully sighted, fully hearing. And I was born blind in my right eye, lost all my vision in my left eye by the time I was 2 years old. My hearing loss was not identified until I was 4 years old at my kindergarten screening. And so that's when we started with our slow journey of um, services both for blind and hard of hearing. One of my grandmas also learned Braille, so that helped. She was actually a Braille transcriptionist for me all the way up and through 8th grade, so it was kind of cool to have that. She'd Braille my assignments and put little notes at the top that I could read. So that was really sweet. And then as was mainstreamed from kindergarten through my senior year of high school. I took advanced placement classes in high school, so AP classes. I then, and I should say, I was also involved in extracurriculars. So I was involved in the Stillwater High School concert choir. Later on, I was involved in the Bethel University concert choir, or I should say, Bethel University choir, where we traveled both nationally and internationally. So I could elaborate more on that if you'd like. But anyway, and then after high school, I attended the Minnesota State Academy for the Blind Transition Program. Like I'd mentioned before, I had academically, I was solid. I had, like I said, AP classes, advanced placement, but I went to the School for the Blind in Faribault just to further develop those independent living and vocational skills. And then from there, I went to Century Community College, where I obtained my associate's degree, again, in 3 semesters because of those AP classes in college and the schools classes that I took in high school. And then after I completed my associate's degree, I transferred to Bethel University, where I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts degree in communications. And I should say I also graduated with honors. And I just want to say I could not have done that. I would not be where I am today if it were not for the support of different services, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a few minutes, as well as a supportive family, church community, and people who have surrounded me.
Hi, I'm Sammy Porter. I go by she, her, hers. I grew up in Wisconsin. I was mainstreamed in school all my life, except for 2 years in high school, where I attended the School for the Deaf. Graduated and then went off to a hearing university. And then, yeah, went to the Wisconsin School for the Deaf.
The next question we have for the panelists is to think about your experiences in high school. What support services did you have? Did you have transition or counseling or guidance experience, family support, support from agencies or programs? Would you mind expanding on those experiences and describe them? Thank you.
I didn't know about any of those transition programs until much, much later. They're transition programs, right? Yeah. I didn't learn about those until later. What a missed opportunity. Now, I was with the gifted kids, but I didn't feel empowered. I didn't feel as though I was ready to enter the world. Once I graduated, it was like, bye, see ya. So when I was accepted and entered Gallaudet University, I was a hot mess. Big time. I asked my vocational rehabilitation counselor for one-on-one note takers and also for tutoring one-on-one so that I could continue my education. VR said I didn't need those things, that I was capable of doing these things on my own because I could see just fine. That pushback led to me withdrawing from Gallaudet. And that experience forced me to transfer to a community college, which I didn't want to attend in the first place. To this day, I still wonder about that experience. It's confusing to me. The community college I attended was about 2 hours from home. And while I was there, I was mistreated really badly by both the school and in the dormitories as well. At one point, I got sick. I visited my doctor, and they wrote me a note to excuse me from school for a while for a break. I brought the note to my instructor, and they tore it up. They didn't believe I was really sick. So I walked out. I didn't know what to do at that point. I didn't know where I wanted to be, didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I ended up staying home. I did some babysitting, but is that really what I want to do with my life? Of course not. I didn't have any idea what my future would look like, what I'd be able to do for work. I just knew that I just wanted to get out of the situation I was in really, really badly. Then a friend called one day, and she started talking about Seattle, Washington. Based on that conversation, I ended up moving to Washington, to Seattle, and got a job in a factory. No, I enjoyed working at the factory, but it wasn't a long-term job for me. And then somehow, several other deafblind individuals approached me during that time, asking me for help. And I kept thinking, why are you asking me? How do you know that I'm a good resource? But I supported them, advocated with them, helped empower them. And that led me to realize that that was something I enjoyed and I could actually work in that area. I ended up moving back home and I worked at the Chicago Lighthouse for the Blind. They partnered with the Helen Keller National Center. The representative there, who supervised all the programs, encouraged me to return to college and get a degree. But I was still scared. I couldn't go back to school without support. It took me a few years of being encouraged to finally agree and empower myself enough to make that decision to go. It took me 5 years to get my associate's degree and then a Bachelor of Science degree in Human Services and Business. So with all that, I wished I had had the transition experience way back in high school. It seems that back in my time, which was the 1980s, they didn't have any sort of transition program until much later. It was set up after I had already graduated, so I couldn't benefit from it. What a disappointment.
Yes, my high school had an IEP plan in place where my teachers, parents, and I would meet to plan for my future. My parents were not aware of the post graduation resources available to me, and nor were they prepared to teach me independent living skills after graduation. The IEP team provided guidance and transition resources. I was connected with my first counselor under State Services for the Blind, or SSB, not here in the Twin Cities, but where I was living at that time in the southern area of Blue Earth. The counselor with SSB was hearing, and they provided interpreters during meetings. Through SSB, I gained independent living skills, got help with job training and readiness, discussed college plans and my future plans of employment. Through them, I learned what resources were available to me and how to access those resources that I needed to succeed. I also connected with Deafblind Services of Minnesota and got support with independent living and job skills. After graduating from high school, I decided to attend the National Technical Institute for the Deaf in Rochester, New York. I majored in business administration. I found out that I excelled with customer service in office settings. And that's how I decided to major in business. I struggled with finding a job, but I did odd jobs. I worked with the program
And I also looked on my own until I found my job.
For sure. So, aside from some of the supports I'd mentioned previously, when I was in high school, I did receive support through State Services for the Blind, SSB. I did have a vocational rehabilitation counselor. They helped prepare me for college and employment. I'm actually still working with them now because of my job situation, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. I also received support from Deafblind Services Minnesota. Throughout my childhood up until I was 21, I had an SSP, which is a support service provider. I had an SSP for both um, community um, and school. Well, I'm sorry, I should say up until you're 21, they're considered an intervener. But then once you're 21, then it's an SSP. So, and then once I turned 21, those intervener services transitioned to support service provider SSP, and those were and I mentioned before that I had attended the Minnesota State Academy for the Blind. Those were the main services I can think of. I did attend a summer camp at the Helen Keller National Center, HKNC, for 2 weeks. When I was in college. Those are the main services. I mean, I also attended some programs through the National Federation of the Blind, some of their advocacy and science, technology, engineering, and math programs. But again, those weren't necessarily services. Those were other organizations I was a part of. But the main services I would say were State Services for the Blind and Deafblind Services Minnesota.
Yeah, I've experienced different types of support systems. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in the mainstream setting at school. During the first 2 years, when I mainstreamed at a hearing high school, I got support through programs, the teachers, family, a deaf and hard of hearing program, and they all really provided me with support to continue with schooling and so on. But the one thing that was missing was access to my culture, my language, my connections, and so forth. So that's when I decided to transfer to the School for the Deaf, and that's where I discovered who I was. I felt like I was going to be able to connect with my culture, learning, and picking up ASL, and being able to participate in sports, a variety of clubs, and so forth. It was great to have that kind of extra support that enabled me to learn about myself through to the end of graduation. I had a guidance counselor who gave me the different options available. And I also had VR support as well. They both gave me ideas and options of what I wanted to do after high school, what the transition experience would look like, and beyond that. So it was really nice to have those supports in place to continue, and especially financial support from VR, as well as assistance through the application process. And what that all entailed of. Some of us might not be able to afford it, but they educated me of the options for financial support that were available to me.
Great. Next, let's talk about where you choose to work. Where do you work now? How did you get there? What did you do on that journey?
Well, currently I'm not working. I'm taking some time to focus on myself and work through some issues. But I've been employed for almost 25 years now. I've worked as an advocate for deafblind individuals. I supported them, provided encouragement, and helped them with skills on independent living. They got to experience and learn, and I was there to empower them with the skills necessary to live independently. I also worked as a technology specialist with a service for deafblind individuals called I Can Connect, or ICC. I worked with ICC for 7 years. Those years were really enjoyable. I got to teach and socialize with deafblind clients and help them learn how to use their assistive technology and devices such as computers and so on.
I'm grateful for NTID's internship program, which led me to a federal recruitment program. I wanted to work here in Minnesota, and I was able to get a job. But at that time, the federal government had a budget freeze, so it was not a good time for job seeking. Instead, I worked odd jobs, such as working at Macy's part-time, while searching for something more permanent. Luckily, the U.S. Army had an opening, and that's how I got my foot in the door. I worked with SSB, who referred me to Employment Endeavors. I worked with Mary White there, and she helped me create a resume, provided training in interviewing and preparation, as well as the importance of having a positive attitude and other job readiness skills that I learned through her and Employment Endeavors. Anyway, I got that job. During the job interview, I answered questions such as why was I interested in this position at this workplace, and what are areas of challenge or conflicts I've had to deal with. After all my responses, the interview shared their background about themselves and the organization, as well as their vision for the position. Then they told me they would contact me in a few weeks. I felt optimistic about the interview and getting the job, and was prepared to accept it if I didn't get the job. A few weeks later, they reached out to me and offered me the position. It has been great. They provide interpreters for me, accommodate my needs, and I haven't experienced any discrimination or barriers. My access needs are met. I've worked there for the past 11 years now.
So, when it came to choosing my specific career path, there were a lot of things that influenced it. For one thing, communications has always been a strength of mine. And so I knew that I wanted to do something that involved helping people and involved communicating with others, utilizing those strong communication skills. I also have a passion for advocacy. When I was in 8th grade, I actually attended a program through the National Federation of the Blind that was called Leadership at Washington, which is abbreviated WA. And at that program, there were 25 of us blind and visually impaired middle school students that actually got to lobby at the national level for legislation that impacts people who are blind and visually impaired. And that's really what launched my desire to work in advocacy. And so now my work experience thus far includes I currently work for a nonprofit organization which supports children who are deaf and hard of hearing and their families. And I've been doing that for a number of years now. And then, so for 3 years, I was working for a medical transcription company doing hiring and recruiting. So I would interview candidates, help with recruiting, make hiring decisions. Um, Unfortunately, I lost that job a couple months ago because of restructuring within the company. Again, no fault of my own. It just was restructuring within the company. But that's been my work experience thus far. So now again, I'm back to working with State Services for the Blind. I'm thinking about pursuing my master's degree in social work. Still trying to figure a lot of things out, but I'm thankful I still have the resource of State Services for the Blind and Family and Deafblind Services Minnesota. So
Growing up, I always wanted to become a nurse. Then I realized that, of course, comes with science and math coursework, which is not my forte. Then I switched paths and began to pursue social work. I absolutely fell in love with it. It gave me a broad spectrum and the opportunity to pursue a specialized field of interest. It could be medical, working with children or family systems, judiciary services, criminal justice. There are just so many options. So I switched gears to social work and work with advocacy, especially with the deafblind community. So I've been enjoying it and really learning a lot from that experience. I currently have 2 part-time jobs, one as a deafblind community specialist through Deafblind Services Minnesota, and the second as a deaf mentor through family services, through Lutheran services. With family services, I focus on families with deafblind children, where I teach both ASL as well as protactile, so they can build bridges to connect with their children without feeling language is a deprivation or a challenge. So that's nice.
Now, think about your jobs and the experiences you've all had. What kind of accommodations did you use? What were the different supports you've had or access at your work, and why?
Well, I've used texting on my mobile device, and I use that to communicate with clients about appointments, when and where to meet up. I text with my boss. We communicate about problems and how to resolve them. I use ASL and interpreting services. And I teach at Columbus College. I present about deafblind individuals and how to work with deafblind students. And I teach to those who are learning to become SSPs. So, in summary, texting, interpreting, and sign language.
As you know, I am deafblind, but understand it's a spectrum. Everyone is different. We all have different levels of vision loss with different needs to meet. For me, I have not lost all my vision yet, and I still identify as deafblind. Right now, my access is through interpreters and ensuring they wear dark clothing that provides color contrast with that same color contrast in their backgrounds as well. In the future, should I lose more vision, I would request tactile interpreting or protactile interpreting.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I can answer that from both the college and workplace perspectives. So, when I was in college, I used a variety of accommodations and I received those accommodations with the support of disability services, which was at both colleges that I attended. I had alternative format textbooks in an accessible format, which were usually digital. Because I'm blind, I use a screen reading software on my computer that reads what's on the screen. And there's a variety of different types of screen readers, which I won't get into that now. But I used textbooks in an alternative format. I did have extended testing time for exams in case I needed it. Again, it was not something I used often, but it was good to have just in case there were accessibility issues. Um, I had preferential seating so that the professor and students were on my right side. I did have orientation and mobility services through State Services for the Blind. When I was in high school, that was through the school district. But um, that way, I was able to learn my way around college to my classes or various rooms I needed to go to for extracurriculars prior to the start of the term or the semester. And then in my work, um, I would say for my full time job, I used my computer. So again, using the screen reader on my computer to access uh, the information that we use, such as accessing spreadsheets, documents, things of that nature. And then another accommodation was that I utilize more in my part-time job is just having information in an alternative format. So, for example, if coworkers are emailing pictures of events that we've hosted or just pictures in general, embedding image descriptions. And it's been really cool to use that accommodation or um, have that option to have alternative text because then it helps to improve it helps to improve um, access not only for me but potentially for other families of children that we serve who may have a combination of hearing and vision loss. And so it's working for me, but it's also being proactive for current and or future families that we serve.
Yeah, most of the time I set up my own computer. I work with a PC, so I set it to use high contrast colors so I can read through emails easier. I also use Zoom when I need to, but I typically use that for legal paperwork to enlarge small fonts. Now I'm starting to learn Braille. And that's an ongoing process. So I can eventually use a Braille reader to use with my computer for those emails I get. It's good to give my eyes a rest every now and then.
Now we're down to our last question. I would love to know if there are ideas, tips, or advice that you would like to share with students or suggestions as they prepare for their journeys through high school and beyond, whether it be into work or college.
As I shared earlier, I didn't have the benefit of a transition program experience. And so I really, really want to encourage that. And it doesn't matter if you're one of the gifted kids or not, it doesn't matter. All of you will benefit from participating in that transition program. So take advantage of it. It'll help you, it will empower you, it will prepare you for college. When I went to Gallaudet University, I was completely unprepared for what was going to happen. I didn't know what to expect in my classes. I didn't know that the teachers were going to be signing so fast. So learning how to empower myself, knowing which people to ask for help, those are the important things. So don't give up. Don't give up. Keep at it until you get what you need. Get the information you need, and then you can get yourself prepared. And that'll help you for your future. I wasn't prepared at all. I just sort of went with the flow. But honestly, that wasn't a good idea. I believe that with support, advising, and encouragement, the transition program experience, all of that will truly help. I honestly believe that.
My advice to the students is to be assertive. That means you all can do it. Be assertive. Get out there. There are resources in the community that will benefit you. Use those resources. There's state services for the blind, deafblind services in Minnesota, and many others. Those resources are there for you to use. You have opportunities for your future, so please use them. Take advantage of those opportunities.
You know, I would say this is so hard. There's so many things I could say. One is be your own best self advocate. Nobody knows what you need like you do, but also lean into the support that you have. You know, you know what's best for you, but you also have a community. And I know I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for the insight that people in my community offered, even if it wasn't something that I would have thought about. Being able to bounce ideas off of your community and have those people you can lean on. The other thing I would say is I don't know what the statistics are for people who are deafblind, but I know statistically for people who are blind, the unemployment rate is 69%. And so, you know, I'm honored and privileged to be where I am today and blessed to be where I am, but I also know we have a long way to go. And because of that, I would just encourage you, don't do what I did back in high school. Don't think, oh, just because I have good grades means that I'm invincible, that I'm not going to struggle. And, um, you know, it's important to develop those characteristics, those qualities of perseverance, resilience, determination, because as someone that is deaf, blind, hard of hearing, those are characteristics, those are qualities that you're going to have to just build into and lean into over time, because I wish things were different, but it's not as easy for us as it is for typical hearing and sighted people. But as long as we can raise our expectations for ourselves and for one another, I think we'll help society be in a better place to expect even more from our community.
Yeah, I do. And I want to make sure that if you already know what you want to do, stick with it. And if you find yourself struggling, be open and accepting what you're capable of doing. There are so many different opportunities out there, and you can always find a way to accommodate your needs. And be sure that you are truly happy with whatever you pick. Also, from my experience, as you learn how to adjust and learn how to cope with yourself, know that it's going to be okay. Careers will always evolve. It's okay. Be persistent. Do not feel bad to the point where you feel you should give up. Don't. Find a different way around it. It'll be fine. Yeah, I would like to say that once you pick your path, remember that you're on your own journey. Everyone's journey is going to be different. If you find yourself struggling, it's okay to ask for help.
Well, thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists. So far, we have showcased deaf, deaf-blind, and hard of hearing individuals and shared their stories, and the process has been amazing. I would like to remind all of you students that you're not the only one out there. You have a community behind you. We're here to support you, to share resources. We have so many different programs that are available to you. One of them is my program, Vocational Rehabilitation Services, or VRS. And we're housed in the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, also known as DEED. You can visit our website and find out more information. Things like a list of counselors that are appointed to your high school. And if you're curious, there'll be a link at the end of this video. And there are other resources out there. The Commission has some amazing resources that are available on their website. So be sure to think about your plans for the future. Ask your teachers, family, friends, neighbors, anyone you feel comfortable and safe with. We all had to start somewhere. You are not alone. Be positive. There is so much out there that's available for you on your journey. Thank you so much. Oh, one last thing. I didn't want to forget some of the important partners that we've been working with, such as State Services for the Blind, Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services Division. They're so important for you. Thank you. And teachers, if you need some help, just let us know. Thank you so much.